come when people do the AOB. This is only the Parliament of Kenya where we start with any other business and then the business starts later. So I know how to come at the right time as a member of Parliament who is a legislator, who is a lawyer by training. So I know this is a time when we do. But beyond that, Mr. Speaker, he was my former chair in the budget. So you must also know as a majority leader that the budget committee is sitting the whole day. So I'm a very committed member of the House. I've sat the whole day, but still had time to be here. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to support the report by the head of the delegation of Pan-African Parliament, Honorable Mukami, on the proceedings of the first ordinary session of the 6th Parliament of Pan-African Parliament. Indeed, as the Speaker says, I'm a former member of the Pan-African Parliament, and so I understand quite a bit of how the proceedings go. Mr. Speaker, I've looked at the report, and I've seen that the report on the main plenary focuses a lot on the issue of conflict and unconstitutional regime changes in Africa, and makes very serious recommendations, including early warning, and it is important, Mr. Speaker, as a continent to check on what bedevils us and why these changes are becoming very common. Perhaps because we are slackening on the issue of governance. So maybe that is one of the things that we need to check as a continent. Mr. Speaker, one of the other things that I've actually seen them talking about is the issue of the need for continued election monitoring in countries where there's election monitoring. Mr. Speaker, courtesy of the Pan-African Parliament, I had opportunity to monitor election in a few of the countries. And one of the things I've noticed, which even creates those conflicts, is that at Africa we are usually very late in terms of our reaction to changes. When, for instance, I'll give you an example, like the last time I was in Zambia, and when we did the election monitoring, everything looks okay, because the kind of questionnaire that you are given for monitoring will assess things like, what time did people start the election, was there violence, did people have a chance to vote uninterrupted? But, Mr. Speaker, that is not how elections are rigged anymore in Africa. Elections are rigged digitally, and there is no system for monitoring digital stealing of elections. And until we reach a point in Africa where we are able to monitor digital rigging of elections, then we'll still have challenges as a continent. And therefore, I would want to urge the Pan-African Parliament that the next time that they're talking about this, let them look at how we can confront the issue of digitalization of elections, because that's where the problem is. The problem is no longer about whether people, I was also in Ghana, people vote very well. There's never any issue. But usually there's an issue post the election in transmission, especially in transmission of elections. So that is where we should be looking at. How do you monitor a digitized system of election? And I'm very disappointed even in development partners who are still living 40 years, 60 years ago when we didn't have digitized systems. And they look at the way people walked in, the way people got, voted. But how do you monitor how people, or rather how those results are transmitted? Mr. Speaker, I can actually tell you as a matter of fact that I won, and I won by a very huge margin. But still my elections were, part of my election was rigged. I only left because I beat my opponent by a very big margin. So I didn't want to go on and on about it. I have written in my book, Rig or Be Rigged, that one of the things that is bedeviling us as a country and as a continent is that. And until we deal with it, then we can attend every conference and attend every meeting, and it will not solve our problems in Africa. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that I want to thank the Pan-African Parliament for dealing with is the issue of women's rights, and especially focusing on the Maputo Protocol. I know that Kenya is a party to the Maputo Protocol, but our challenge, because the Maputo Protocol talks very strongly on the issue of reproductive rights of women. Unfortunately, in this country, when especially our religious sector hear the word reproductive, you would actually think that reproductive is worse than the case that happened in Kilifi. That it's more sin to talk of reproductive, yet people are reproducing, including pastors. So I don't know why reproduction is a sin. I would want to encourage the religious leaders to know that reproduction is not a sin. When you hear us talking, so I'm actually bringing a bill called Family Reproductive Healthcare Bill. When you see it, don't be on the defensive.
Honorable Millie Adhiambo, did you forget that the speaker is your uncle?
Yeah. Thank you, my uncle, Mr. Speaker. But it is true. Everybody reproduces, including pastors. The only people who don't reproduce, I know, is in the Catholic Church, where people who have committed themselves to serve God. But some also sometimes sin is all over the world. So you even find people who have committed to serving the Lord sometimes are swayed to reproduce. And because of that, I would want to encourage that as a country, when we do finally bring that